Hello, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Andrew, and I really enjoy cooking. One of the things I find most enjoyable about cooking is trying to improve, trying to find out ways to do what I'm doing better. One of the best ways to do that is to see what other people do and find out why it is that they do the things they do with food. So a friend of mine, Sarah, actually makes this series where 10 women all receive the same article of clothing and then adapt it into their own style. And it's so interesting to see what each person does. So we're gonna do the same thing, but with an ingredient. So for this first video, Alvin, Inga, and I all made dishes using a whole chicken. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hi, Andrew.
So we've all made our chicken recipes. None of us know what each other did. Adam has put together the footage for us to watch. Alvin, you're going first. What recipe did you make and why did you pick this one?
I made a dry brine spatchcock roasted whole chicken.
Wait, dry brine what?
Spatchcock roasted whole chicken.
Is this your first time spatchcocking a chicken?
100%, yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is me trying to figure out how to spatchcock a chicken. You know, a lot of juices were kind of, going everywhere. And I'm cutting the backbone, basically, with a pair of clean chicken shears. Removing that, it gets kind of intense here. I've been watching Hannibal recently, so I'm kind of thinking about that as I was going. The backbone has to come out, but the breastbone also needs to be cut, so the whole chicken can be like spatchcocked.
Wait, you said you've never done this before. How did you know how to do all of this?
YouTube.com.
So that's the keel bone, right? It's like where the sternum is on us?
I don't want to think of it like that, but yes.
Okay, sorry. I don't want to spoil anything, but I'm excited for you to watch my video.
Okay. Also cutting off the wingtips so they don't burn. And the goal is to have the chicken be spread out flat so it's an even surface and it cooks faster.
Right. So is that your main motivation for spatchcocking, to kind of speed things up?
Yeah, I think it increases the surface area for the seasoning to go through and shortens cooking time, as well as provides a better, flatter surface for browning. Okay, so I added some salt, sugar, and MSG to make the dry brine mixture, which is a trick I learned from my chef friend, because I think it has a lot of flavor, and the ratio is 1 salt, 1 sugar, and half MSG. All right, and then I'm putting this on a tray, putting that mixture of the salt, sugar, MSG all over it. I went really heavy with it because chicken is thick and I wanted the flavor to kind of go through, and it's gonna pull the water out, but it's also gonna go back in once it finishes brining. So this is a dry brine, which is just a lot of seasoning, and I've done it with steak and it works well too. Covering with plastic wrap, sealing it, and then putting it in the fridge for overnight so that the brine has time to work magic and also get the skin a little bit drier.
Is that why you put it on a cooling rack?
Yeah, so the cooling racks help with the airflow and allows any of that like excess water to sort of drip out, because I want the surface of it to be kind of dry.
That's what I should have done.
The seasoning a day ahead thing, I think, is really kind of like an underrated cooking tip in general.
Especially for a whole chicken.
For sure.
Yeah, so first cooking it through all the way at around 200 degrees, super low, dries the skin out, make sure that the chicken is 165 internal, which is the correct temperature. So probing it with a thermometer is very important. And then after that, letting it rest so that it doesn't seize up a little more. And you can also see the skin has really dried up. It's not crispy, but it is dry. So there's like no water anymore. Very, very, very different. But the chicken inside is fully cooked and super juicy. And I wanted to get like crispy broiled top, so I turned on the broiler, stuck it back in, realized that the broiler is indeed a little too hot for a chicken skin. Instead I turned off the broiler. It's like burning a little bit on the top. There's like some black patches, so instead I turned the oven to like 500 and turned the broiler off.
There's nothing wrong with that. I would still eat that.
But then you can also see there's like patches of chicken where I tore the skin off because it got too dark. And then I put some pepper on it to finish because the pepper would have burned if I put it on before. After letting it rest a little more, carving it on a board. I don't really know how to carve chicken. I just imagine the way Costco does their rotisserie chicken and try to like figure it out. It was really, really, really juicy. Like the juices, I think you can see on the board, it just looked really delicious. And I wanted to plate it up. I didn't know how, so I kind of threw everything on a plate. Not the most perfect roast chicken presentation.
That looks awesome.
Oh, thanks. I don't know if you can tell, but it was like very juicy, very flavorful. Like it looks white and pale, but the salt and the sugar and the MSG made it taste so good. Yeah.
It looks great. I think you nailed it.
It tasted like a Costco rotisserie chicken. I'm not even kidding.
Was that your goal? That was your goal. That was totally your goal.
Inga, you're next. What chicken did you make?
I made a tea-smoked chicken that I used to eat growing up. I ate it so much that I did not like it anymore, but I told Adam about it, and he was like, well, this is the one you have to make then. So I made it. I've never made it before, but first step I did was to get my spices, which is star anise, citron peppercorn, and salt. There is a lot of salt, and this is pretty much for that like dry brining stuff Alvin was doing too. And I basically just roasted it over, it was like low heat, medium heat until the salt turned color.
Tell me about this pan you're using.
This pan I'm using is a very normal, very cheap pan. It's a heavier bottomed pan though, because I don't want to burn it too quick, so it is a little thicker just to give it a little more roasting time. So that was the dry brining part, and then this was I guess the wet brine. Oh, that sounds so weird. But like, you know how like the whole chicken, you want it to have flavor on the inside as well, so then this was preparing for that. So this was some ginger, a lot of scallion because I love scallion, and then some rice wine, which is just to cut the like gaminess of the chicken flavor. And then I just like massaged it a little bit to help it with the flavor. So I bought this chicken from Chinatown, and it came with a head and everything and all that stuff.
Did you cut it off?
I had to snip the head off.
Oh wow, you got the actual whole chicken. Like
Yeah.
I didn't get that whole of a chicken.
Quite the experience, but like I pretty much dried it. So I just like dabbed it with a paper towel, made sure it was dry, and then I just like rubbed the salt mixture on it, and then shoved all the wet stuff in there.
Seeing like the dry seasoning and the onion and the ginger and everything, like I can like smell it right now, and it's like making my mouth water, you know? Like I can just imagine the fragrance happening off of that cutting board.
It smelled really, really good. I also actually, my family did it slightly differently. I wanted to kind of cater it to my own palate as well, and that's why I went heavy on like the citron peppercorn and the star anise. We never really used to spice it up so much, but I wanted to have a little fun. And then I just wrapped it in cling wrap and then let it chill in the fridge for overnight. So then it could really let those flavors seep in. So kind of like what Alvin did, except without the cooling rack. So day 2, I unwrapped it. I took out the wet ingredients and also just tried to brush off all the citron peppercorn. So the next step was to steam the chicken. You actually steam the chicken prior to smoking it. The only thing is the chicken was very huge. I found my biggest wok, and I tried to, you can see like, it's not an actual proper steamer, it's my cooling rack in my wok, and I could not fit it in the wok. It was so frustrating because like it has to be tightly sealed, right? So I tried really hard, I tried to squish it down, didn't really work. So I swapped it for my vegetable steamer.
I've noticed that lots of recipes recommend that you get a small chicken, and they're always like, oh, around 3 pounds. I've never seen a 3-pound chicken in a grocery store before.
Yeah, I think for mine, I just went crazy. Okay, so then preparing the tea smoked ingredients. So there's tea. I use this type of green tea that my dad sent to me from China. I think you can use any type of tea, but I decided to go with this one because I had a lot of it. For sugar, I use this brown slab candy we call piantang, which is just, I think it has like a richer, Alvin, you know this, right?
Yeah, I love it. It's my favorite.
Yeah, it's almost like, I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's like molassy, but it's almost like more flavor than, let's say, regular cane sugar. And then I just put it in a plastic bag because you're supposed to get it into like little pieces. So I was like smashing it. I was so scared my neighbors would come at me. So then I basically mixed it together in a bowl, but I also added flour. And the reason the flour actually helps with the smokiness, you want more smoke, and the flour makes sure that happens. So. Oh, and then my chicken was done after it steamed.
Whoa,
I poured out the juices on the inside.
Hold on, wait, we backed that up a little bit. Excuse me, look at that. What is this juice?
It was all the chicken juice.
Oh, so I imagine like the steam is just accumulating inside, and like you get
Yes.
this juice at the end.
Yeah, and steamed chicken, even before smoke it, it's like at this point it's pretty much close to being done. Like there's already so much. Oh, I opened the window because
I like this shot.
You see my little sushi things?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's important to let it cool, like kind of what Alvin did earlier, you know, make sure that the skin is dry. So this is just to help with that. It's also very cold in New York right now, so that's why I opened the window. I actually use my hair dryer too, but nobody needs to know that. Actually, I have to cut that out. But I was trying to speed up the process. And then
That's the stuff you got to keep in. Those are the secrets.
So while that was cooling, I just prepared my wok for the smoking process. So a lot of aluminum foil. You want to protect the pan, and then just laid it out and used my cooling rack again. My cooling rack is like a multi-purpose rack. It has saved me numerous times throughout this video. Once that was done, chicken was cooled. This is dark soy sauce. Dark soy sauce is known for its color more than its flavor, right? So this is just to help ensure that like there will be a color change. So once it's dry, this is also why it's important that it's dry too, because that way the color will stick. So then smoked it. Look at all that smoke.
Wow.
It was so smoky.
Were you worried about setting off the alarms in your apartment?
Yes. I opened my door and I opened my window.
Wow.
Wow, look at that.
Whoa.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So,
Holy moly.
right? And I want to say that at this point, it smelled like it used to when I was growing up.
It looks like something I would buy at those Chinese barbecue like stores.
Yay,
Yeah, it looks
that's the
so good.
goal.
Wow.
So it's very important when we serve it to have the chicken chopped up, but you need like a
Cleaver?
菜刀. Yeah, you need a cleaver to really cut through the bone and to make clean cuts, and also you need to know where the joints are. This isn't something like a beginner level. Like I could do it, but I also like recently chopped my finger. But my friend Eric, who's a chef, I asked him to come and help me chop it up.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
look at that cleaver.
Look at that
Yeah.
color.
And it was just like,
This is the same guy
Wow.
that uses the salt sugar MSG brine.
Oh. I like how you're like, oh, chopping it up is not for a beginner, and yet you smoked a chicken in your apartment. Like, that's not beginner level
Oh
stuff.
my god. Are you kidding
Oh
me?
man.
yes! So
Wow.
this is the final presentation.
Wait,
I wanna eat
describe
that so
describe the
bad.
flavor.
So you know how like here we have like smoked barbecue, right? So it's a little different because I feel like here you use like wood chips and like you get that flavor. Or here you get like that like, I think it's like the aromatics of the tea and also the sugar. It's almost like a caramel-ish kind of smokiness. Also, you see the little flower carrots that I put there. It's because at like the Chinese restaurants that they always serve it with some sort of garnish like that. So
Right.
I wanted to mimic it.
So you mentioned that you got kind of tired of this dish because you had it a lot as a kid. Did this kind of rekindle things for you, or how do you feel about it now?
Okay, so I haven't had this dish in like 10 to 15 years. I think it was very nostalgic, but I also think because I was able to cater it to my flavors, like what I like, I loved this.
I think yours takes the cake. It looks so good. For my recipe, I wanted to kind of challenge myself to do something I hadn't done before, which is actually what we all ended up doing. So for my chicken, I'm doing this Jacques Pepin recipe, something called chicken Bellatine, where he actually debones an entire chicken, creates a stuffing for it, and then wraps it back up with butcher's twine and roasts that. So I learned how to do this by following along with actually a few different videos online of him doing it. If you go on YouTube and search Jacques Pepin deboning chicken, there's like an old one that's from the 80s, I think. There's another one where he's at the MAD Symposium in Copenhagen. There's another where he's on the Rachel Ray show, which funny enough, Adam and I were on the Rachel Ray show once. Shout out Rachel Ray.
Wow.
The first thing it asks you to do is to remove the chicken wings. Really, this whole deboning process is about moving the joints around and then finding the gap between them. And when you do that, it becomes very easy to slice. So
Yeah,
next, I'm removing the wishbone. There, I got the whole thing out. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes it breaks. This next part, you have to kind of find the articulation of the thigh bone. You start by slicing the skin down the back to sort of reveal where this thing is.
Wait,
This is insane.
I was gonna say, like, just now when I was saying, like, how chopping the chicken, you need to know where the right places are. You're doing this when it's raw. Are you, like, I know you watch a lot of videos, but, like, were you kind of, like, feeling it? It was a lot of, like, feeling it out and, like, making sure you were in, like, the right place?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the whole challenge of this one. There actually aren't that many cuts in the process. It's about like finding where these joints are or like these different articulations of the bones and then finding the gap between them and then cutting that stuff. Where we're looking right now, the thighs are on the bottom. So the top, you see those little, it's the leftover sort of drumsticks where the wings used to be. So you're basically cut where like that meat sort of connects with the spine. I had a hard time finding exactly where to cut, but eventually I got it where you can see the drumsticks kind of like fall away from the bird. But you get to this point where you can just grab the rib cage and spine and then just pull down on the meat.
What?
and the whole thing kind of just comes off like a glove. And you have to do like a couple more cuts on the way down to kind of like release it from that point. But honestly, it was surprisingly easy. Like once I found where the drumstick was supposed to be separated, pulling that whole chicken down was surprisingly easy. Like it makes sense once you are feeling what you're doing. While I was doing this process, it kind of felt like if you're driving somewhere for the first time and you don't know where you're going, like you might be right outside the place you need to go, but like you just don't know until you finally realize. There were a lot of moments in this process where I was like, I don't think I'm doing this right. I think I have to give up. And then like something would pull and I'd be like, oh no, like I'm right there. Oh, it's working. So you basically end up with the carcass fully separated from all the meat. All that's left actually is the chicken tender, which is kind of like naturally separated from the breast. And you could see I just remove it with my fingers away from that keel bone. I had to use my knife to like separate it a little bit, but then it really just kind of comes away. And then yeah, what you're left with is perfect internal carcass of the chicken, which I then threw in my freezer along with all the other chicken wing tips and like everything else I trimmed off to save for like another time making stock or something.
I love it.
So the next part is, I think, the most interesting part, which is removing the bone from the whole thigh. I sort of popped it out of its joint to like pull away from the carcass nicely. So then what you're doing is you're taking the knife and you're scraping down the bone. Like you're not really cutting anything, you're just kind of scraping it away from the bone until it goes around each little joint section. And then at the end, Jacques does this thing where he takes the back of a heavier knife and he cracks the tip of the leg bone so that it breaks inside but doesn't break the skin. And so the idea of this is that later on when you roast it and the skin contracts, it won't, suck up and reveal the stuffing or the inside meat. And instead, you can just pull the bone out from inside. So that's what I have there.
Wow.
What? Wait, okay, I also wanted to ask, I just want to know when you said scraping the meat off the bone, is that like the easiest way to remove it?
It does seem so. It works surprisingly well. And the meat kind of like, stays in one piece. You're kind of just like taking the chicken's pants off. So I remove the other bone. Can kind of see how squishy the thigh is afterwards. It's kind of weird that it looks like a complete chicken thigh, but inside it's just like all jelly. So then I'm doing the same process to the little drumettes, and then it's pretty much done. The last thing that he has you do is remove the sinew from the tender. So this was actually kind of difficult. It was quite slippery, but I found that if I took a paper towel and held it down to the board, you could then scrape this tendon just away from the chicken. It's surprising how effective that is to just remove stuff.
How long did this whole entire deboning take you?
Yeah,
so here's the thing. In all of Jacques' videos, he's like, once you know how to do this, it should only take you like 45 seconds. It took me like 15 to 20 minutes.
No way. No way.
The thing that takes the longest is just trying to orient yourself. But I did find like once I saw what I was supposed to do, the actual motion did not take that long. So you're supposed to slice the breast and arrange the tenderloin and any other meat to kind of create as even of a layer as possible. I salted and peppered it, then I prepared my stuffing. So I sort of made up the stuffing based on what I had seen of Jacques making it. I browned some mushrooms. I'm not sure if this was a necessary step, but I thought that dehydrating them a little bit and getting that sort of mushroom caramelization would be nice. Then I wilted a bunch of spinach with garlic, which seems to be like a really common stuffing for this. And then I mixed that all together. The rest of the stuffing is some leek that I had, and then some breadcrumbs. And then interestingly, the last stuffing ingredient is Gruyere cheese, which I was very excited about.
Wait, really?
Yeah, there's cheese in there.
This looks so good. I just want to eat the stuffing in a bowl right now.
Yeah, right?
So where I removed the bone from the thigh, I'm like putting the stuffing back into that space to like, you can see it kind of like fills out.
It's like a stuffed toy. Oh man, I was gonna say it's like a stuffed toy, but that's kind of nasty.
It is a stuffed animal. It's
yeah, it's a stuffed animal.
Edible.
It's a stuffed animal for sure.
Yeah.
So you see, I close it as best I can, roll it over, and then you begin tying it up, starting with the legs, and then doing this. I think it's called a half hitch. It creates that pattern of knot. I don't know how else to describe that.
Wow.
So yeah, there's my chicken. I started by browning it in a pan, following along what Jacques recommended, and then I roasted it for about 40 to 50 minutes. I think I overshot it a little bit, maybe 5 minutes or so. You can see I added vegetables to the pan at some point. I just wanted to prevent the rendered fat from burning and smoking inside my oven. And there's kind of the finished chicken. I was shocked it turned out as well as it did, to be honest. I was expecting a disaster. I let it rest for a while, and then I sliced it up.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
It looks like porchetta.
Right?
Yeah,
I
it's
was
kind of a
gonna
similar
say,
thing, right?
Oh, I want to eat that so bad.
I,
Did it live up to your expectations, taste-wise?
It was good.
It
I mean,
looks like a centerpiece dish for Thanksgiving, for Christmas.
Yes.
I think it would be so cool to do that instead of just like turkey. And have the whole thing have no bones. How fun is that?
Yeah. Honestly, that's the best part, is you get to the end, everything is edible at that point. Like, you don't have to worry about carving or anything. You just like slice it and it's good.
wow.
I'm
Alex,
very impressed.
Like,
Oh, come
what
on.
just happened?
You smoked a chicken.
Anybody can smoke a chicken.
And I put my chicken in the oven.
Cool. So this will be an evolving video series, I think.
Yes.
Trying things new sometimes, trying old things. What do you think we should do next time?